Quick announcement before we jump into the episode. The 8-week parenting pivot where you'll learn how to implement Connect Method parenting, get your kids to want to listen to you, is starting October 28th. Head over to cmp.works/pivot to find out more. Your ability to overcome obstacles and to be inconvenienced and to do it anyway is going to change your life. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. How are you? Happy Monday. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm just coming off 6 days of being sick, and I feel so energized. I'm so excited to be recording for you today. Getting better every day and makes me really appreciate my health. Really appreciate my health. I'm coming to you live from Barcelona. We have about 5 days left, which is insane. And then we're moving over to Rome. I'm starting to get the hang of slow traveling. It's been an adjustment, but I'm getting the hang of it. And we're going to just soak up the last 5 days we have here in Barcelona. Today, you guys, I want to talk about what's happening next week. We are starting the final pivot of the year. And I want you to be there. And I wanted to spend this whole episode really explaining what it is because there's so much to it. Yes, it's an 8-week deep dive on Connect Method Parenting that will change your life forever, but it's so much more than that. So we're going to explore all of the things, who it's for, which, by the way, sneak peek, spoiler alert, it's for those who have been working with me forever, those who have just found me today, and everybody in between. Because no matter where you are with your parenting, when you jump in and work with me specifically on implementing Connect Method Parenting, learning and implementing it, you're going to be able to take what you need and implement it at the level you can implement it, okay? Applications actually close on Saturday, and I want to see all of you there, whether you've worked with me before, haven't worked with me before. This pivot is going to be fantastic, and I wanted to let you guys all know what we have in store for you, why you would want to do it, what results you're going to create for yourself. So that's what we're talking about today. Here we go. Yesterday I was coaching inside office hours, and I realized that the 8-week parenting pivot is a connective challenge. Yes, meaning you are willing to do the work to swap out corrective for connective parenting strategies in 8 weeks. It can happen. I will help you do it. But are you ready? Are you ready? Do you want it? I'm going to talk about how this is not just a parenting pivot or even a connective challenge. It is so much more than that. It is an opportunity to change your life and the trajectory of your family. This will be the 4th time we're running the pivot as it currently exists. I've been teaching Connect Method Parenting since 2018, but at the end of 2023, we revamped the entire program so that we could, there were a lot of reasons. One was so that we could study the impact that Connect Method Parenting could have on parents inside an 8-week program. I wanted to create the highest level of results in the shortest period of time. And this will be the last pivot that is also part of the CMP study. So it's the last pivot of the year, and it's the last part of the study, meaning the last pivot we are running that will be part of the study. The study is ending. It was a study we did over the entire year of 2024. There have been an amazing amount of data that we're running now, and I cannot wait to unpack it with you in a future podcast. It's remarkable. And there's also some pretty remarkable perks that you get as a result of participating in the pivot as it currently stands inside of the study. Meaning you get to do it for the cost of a refundable deposit, which is unheard of. Who does something like that? Oh yeah, we do. We do, because we know Connect Method Parenting works and we are willing to do the work to prove it. And this study is our way of doing that. And if parents are willing to come in, they're willing to do the 8 weeks with us, they're willing to do the work, go through the program, then they get to do it for free. There's a refundable deposit, which is really a promissory note to yourself that you're going to do the work. And it also helps us wisely allocate resources. So seriously, if you want to learn how to implement a connection-based parenting framework, which takes you completely out of behavior modification, which is what we call parenting in the Western world, you will not have another opportunity to do this for basically no cost. I know this offer is so good. You feel silly for not taking it, right? You have nothing to lose other than the contention, the conflict, the tug of war, the frustration. You have everything to gain. I've been telling all of the members in League, those who have done the pivot before, I'm like, you got to redo this pivot because it's going to be the best one we've ever done. And the last one in its current iteration, we will be revising, revamping. Who knows exactly what it's going to look like? Maybe we'll call it the pivot next year. Maybe we won't. I'm not really sure. But this will be the last time to do the pivot. So let's talk about who the pivot has been created for. It's for parents who are tired of doing the same dance with their kids. The kids push the limits, which push your buttons, which push you into a state of frustration, which pushes you over the edge. So you go into consequencing, threatening, ultimatums, which sometimes creates a shift in their behavior temporarily in the moment, but not long term, and creates tension and stress in the relationship. It's for parents who are willing to spend 8 weeks with me in a deep dive container, recreating your entire parenting framework from scratch. We are going to dismantle the behavior modification framework, aka learning theory, Western parenting. We're going to create a connection modification framework. I kind of say that tongue in cheek because I don't really like the word modification, but let's juxtapose the two. Correction modification, behavior modification, using external stimuli, and we're moving it all internal to connection, self-motivated, intrinsic motivation, and helping our children want to do better. Okay? We're going to do that via attachment theory. We're going to honor the nervous system. It's going to be grounded in deep emotional maturity and ownership. It's for parents who know that the changes with their parenting starts with them, not with their children. It's for the parents who have never worked with me. So we'll be doing the first stage of parenting remodeling. And it's for parents who have worked with me for a long time or even just a few months. Because if you have worked with me before, you're going to be able to hear what we're talking about in this pivot and take it to a deeper level. Your remodeling is going to be more thorough, more complete. It's going to handle more off-track behavior. So you need to believe that it's possible to change your parenting, and that working with me in the pivot and doing 8 weeks of deep dive connection challenge work is going to shift things for you on a level that has not been possible before. You need to know that we are going to do it, but you need to believe it's possible. You have to believe it's possible and that it's something you want. So this is going to be for you if when you hear me talk about connection-based parenting or doing a connection challenge or pivoting your parenting for good, making a shift in your parenting, and you hear me say connection, not correction, you feel excitement. And your main thought, your main reaction is, let's go. I have been doing the pivot with parents all year. The process is the same, no matter what issue you're facing with your child. At the core, we are going to the root of attachment. I lean heavily on Dr. Neufeld's theory of attachment. It's brilliant. We marry it with a ton of other ways to create the new neural pathways and how to reprogram you so that you can filter the situations that your child is doing in a different way so you show up differently. And when you show up differently, everything shifts. So the pivot and connection challenge or connective challenge, right, is this infinite concept that we can only master and learn by doing it in a finite time period. Let me say that again. The pivot is this infinite concept. It's big and so bold and so impactful on your life, but if you keep it big and bold and, oh my gosh, there's so much that would happen if I accomplish this, if I changed my parenting, you're not going to get anywhere. So we've got to take this infinite concept and try to do as much as we can in a finite time period, 8 weeks. So you're going to choose a parenting goal. You're going to commit to creating it in 60 days, 8 weeks, which we help you do once you start the pivot. We call it your big mama goal. It's the bullseye you're shooting for the entire 8 weeks. And if you have trouble coming up with goals, if you're not sure how to do it, do not worry. We have a tool built in the app for you, in the portal, where it walks you through step by step and even helps you and gives you suggestions. I remember when it hit me that Connect Method parenting was something that a parent could create regardless of any external situation, what the child was doing, how they were behaving, what they were talking about, what they were saying, and how that resonated in my body. It felt so true. Now, I know a lot of people will hear me say this concept and don't like it. They don't understand it. They don't like the idea of connection being one directional, because what I'm saying there in that statement that I just made was that you can change how you're showing up regardless of what the child's doing. It's not dependent on the child. They'll hear me say that and they'll say things like, I don't like that. I don't like this idea of being one directional. It doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel like it's impactful. Like, I need my child to reciprocate. It feels like the burden is all on my shoulders if you phrase it like that. If you look at it like that, that feels unfair. But who else's job is it to show up and love and direct and stay emotionally regulated when your child has off-track behavior than yours? I'm not asking you to do the work that the child's supposed to be doing. I'm asking you to do the work as the parent, showing up with unconditional love regardless of how your child's showing up with compassion and firmness and staying emotionally regulated regardless of how dysregulated they are. Whether you like it or not, that's your job. So let's own it. Let's do it beautifully, not resentfully. It's your child's job to show up the way they're showing up. It's not your child's job to make your job easy. And sometimes parents will tell me they have a hard time getting out of this transactional behavior modification thinking, which is what behavior modification tells us needs to happen. You give them a consequence, then they have better behavior. They do something bad, you do something to them to make their life miserable, so they'll change. You do this, they'll do that. You said you would put away your laundry, you didn't do it, so now you have a consequence and you feel justified and maybe you feel frustrated. Even if you're keeping the frustration simmering down below, you feel frustrated. I was just watching something on Instagram of a parenting expert that was talking about how the exact scenario was, and she was doing it in a really lovely way, to be honest. Her tone was nice. She's like, you didn't put away the laundry, so now you need to stop watching TV and put away the laundry. I'm all for that. But then she piles on a punitive consequence. And now you're also going to have to do extra chores. I have done this. It does not work. Why would we do this? Do we want our child to suffer? What do we hope to accomplish? If the motivation that's going to get them to want to do their laundry next time is the relationship, is this going to make them feel more connected to us or less connected to us? I am not at all for transactional parenting. I'm not at all for saying, hey, if you don't do this, you have to pay me money, or you have to do an extra chore, or you have to, make it up to me somehow. Because we're trying to teach them through external stimuli. I'm all for limits and boundaries. I'm all for saying, hey, we agreed that you don't watch TV until you do the laundry. We need to do the laundry. So what I'm challenging you to do as a parent is to take full ownership for what is yours to own, so you can show up as a parent you respect and are proud of. The connection you give has to be freely given with no requirement tied to it. It is so easy to get frustrated and to think, well, I'm really connected and I'm showing up for my child. Why aren't they reciprocating with love or better behavior or connection? And this is where we get ourselves into so much trouble. We become needy and graspy, and we become judgmental, and we think we're going to teach them by giving them consequences, which suck. You guys, if you forgot to do something or just chose not to do something, say you made an agreement with your partner to clean the house and you just didn't get it done for whatever reason, it doesn't matter why you didn't do it. And your partner came home from wherever they were and they said to you, oh my gosh, you agreed to clean the house and you're watching TV. So you need to stop watching TV, clean the house. And then because you didn't do that, you don't get to drive the car for a week, or you have to clean the bathrooms too. Do you see how that feels? Now, again, I'm not at all subscribing for passivity in our parenting, but I want us to be really honest and take a look in the mirror and realize that when you are giving out extra punitive consequences with the intent and the idea that they will teach your child to have better behavior in the future, you have been confused. You have been taught lies. That is not how it happens. Now, if you feel that it is in service of your child to whatever, give the limit that you want to give. I'm trying to think if I can have one. To me, it would just be holding the limit you set, not creating more things that they have to do, not making them wrong. Having unconditional positive regard for them, as Carl Jung has, is the solution. So I'm going off on a tangent. I'm totally not even following my outline, so I have no idea where I am. But I just want to say that we have to let go of transactional parenting. We have to. Because you do not want your friends or your partner to be doing transactional relationships with you. It feels awful when somebody says, hey, you didn't keep your end of the bargain, so you have to do that. And you have to do all these extra things to what? To make it better, to feel pain, to suffer a little bit, to make you realize how bad you were. Okay, rant over, just had to say that. Transactional behavior modification doesn't work, okay? So if you want to perpetuate struggles with your parenting, if you want to make life harder for yourself, keep doing it. But if you want to let go of it and get your kids to want to listen to you, you've got to not engage in transactional parenting. It doesn't feel good to your kids. They will push and pull against you. They will not want to listen to you. Even if they want their room clean, if you ask them to clean it and then they don't do it and you give them a consequence, they're less likely to clean their room, more to just say, hey, don't control me. Don't try to manipulate me. Okay, I'm really over my rant here. Hopefully, we offer love and connection and unconditional positive regard, and then we let our children be who they're going to be. We don't go passive. We don't go judgy. We don't go graspy. We don't try to punish them or make them suffer for not keeping their end of the bargain. That's part of what humans do. We make promises and we break them. We just try to help them find their own remorse, their own sorrow, their own sense of morality and judgment so that they can make a better choice next time, which will not come when we are activating their nervous system by piling on consequences that are punitive. I'm not talking about connective consequences, which I call limits. I'm not talking about holding a boundary, none of that. Just talking about when we give our child an extra chore, we make them pay for, a charge because they haven't done XYZ, or we take away something, a privilege, an opportunity because of a bad behavior. You're making your life harder, not worse. Those are why people say that they might have a tricky time adapting a connect method parenting philosophy, is because they don't want to do all the work because they want their kids to be better so they can feel better, which, like I said, our job as a parent is to show up regulated, handle all the off-track behavior. That's why they need us. That's our job. And this transactional behavior modification that we've all been in the Western world thought was just parenting is completely off the rocker. It's time to drop it like a bad habit. Okay, effort doesn't necessarily entitle you to better behavior or relationships. Okay, so I'm bringing this up because I have parents who are hesitant to do the 8-week parenting pivot with me, or they get into it. I found this too. They get into the pivot and they're like, well, I've been showing up so good, Andy. Why isn't my child showing up better? It's kind of transactional. A little bit of like a connective style behavior modification. Like, I want to change their behavior through my deep connection. So it's not clean. Effort doesn't entitle you to better behavior or better relationships. And the faster you believe that statement, the happier you're going to be as a parent, the less suffering you're going to experience. Effort does not entitle you to better listening, better behavior, better two-sided relationships. And your theory of how much value, which I'm going to break into different components like compassion, understanding, acceptance, so that your child wants to listen to you, how much you're going to need to have, how much compassion you're going to need to have, how much understanding, how much acceptance that you need to show up with to tricky situations. You're going to have a theory about what that looks like, and then you're probably going to be wrong. I think so many of us do not recognize how much effort, how many times we're going to have to show up with understanding and compassion and acceptance to get our kids to want to listen to us. We believe, no, this is the effort I gave. It should have happened by now. So if I don't have the relationship I want with my kids, it's because, something's wrong with me or something's wrong with them. So none of that's true. You have to create the right value, the right connection in the right frequency, which means it's from the right emotionally energetic place. You have to have the mindset. You have to have all these components right. So you can have the value, you can show up in a high connective value state for your kids enough times for them to decide to say, okay, I trust her. I feel safe with her. I'm ready to listen. I respect you more. I want to follow the rules. I think you respect me. Thank you very much. And by the way, this is a very mature parenting concept I'm calling you into. This is the work we're doing in the pivot, you guys. It is deep dive work. It's not surface level parenting. I'm not just telling you, okay, when your child does this, do this. I mean, that's going to be just inevitable to you. And I will give you some suggestions, but I promise you that's going to be so captain obvious to you what you should do once you get the relationship right, your thinking right, you stop the transactional thinking, you understand that corrections and punitive consequences don't change anything and they actually are sabotaging your efforts. So there you go. Okay. There you go. I'm calling you into this parenting concept that is super high level, next level, honestly, next level. So this entitlement, I have found this a couple of times with parents who have come into the pivot. That's why I want to call it out. And I get it because we have been indoctrinated with behavior modification concepts. So we think like, A plus B equals C. I give a consequence, the behavior changes, everything gets better. That's what we've been taught, but it doesn't work that way because I give a corrective consequence, punitive consequence. The behavior temporarily gets better, but the relationship in the long term gets worse. The listening gets worse. So even though we've kind of been shown this little cute equation, it's not that simple. So when we feel entitled, hey, I've invested 10 hours of connection. I haven't exploded after 10 times where my kids have been frustrated, then they should be reciprocating. You're going to get yourself into trouble. Okay. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, but I want to tell you about this really fascinating YouTube video I saw. It was years ago. I don't know the year, but Elon Musk was demoing the Cybertruck, which I know was a while ago because now they're out on the streets everywhere where I live. There's so many. One of the claims that they made as they had the fancy Cybertruck on the stage was that the glass was bulletproof. And he had his assistant throw 2 rocks at the glass and they broke the glass, which doesn't really create a lot of confidence that the windows are bulletproof. And what I think was so fascinating was he didn't appear, at least this is based on my observation, and the fact that it didn't seem to slow him down at all. And the fact that Cybertrucks are now on the road, he didn't have the thought, hey, this was supposed to work. I'm entitled to this working. I gave this amount of effort. I told my people to develop it this way. It should not have a problem. He also didn't seem at all, you can go search up the video. He didn't seem at all to give off any vibes of I'm not valuable. He didn't make it mean anything about himself, or at least it wasn't apparent that he made it mean anything about himself. He seemed to be thinking, okay, that didn't work. That wasn't the right set of parameters to create bulletproof glass. What can we try next? Let's explore, let's strategize, let's theorize, let's evaluate. I already tried different things and we've got to try other things. This mindset is what sets high level thinkers apart. And the moms who work with me and continue to work with me are showing up like this. They are constantly working on seeing how things that haven't gone right, this thing that supposedly has gone quote unquote wrong, is just a result of the value that they're bringing to the relationship isn't quite there yet. It's off. They show up to office hours regularly. They're identifying areas that aren't going the way they want them to go. They're drilling into the situation with full ownership. It's not an entitlement. It's not, oh my gosh, I should be working by now, or something's wrong with me. They are just figuring out what's off and coming up with a theory, and they're going and trying it, and they're coming back and we evaluate and we iterate. They aren't thinking this is never going to work. My kids will never listen. I'll never stop yelling. Instead, they're thinking, I didn't get it right this time with the emotional energy I was sending off, or the way I showed up, or my nervous system wasn't quite calm enough, or maybe my child just needs more time. I thought it would take this amount of time, 2 or 3 weeks. It's taking 2 or 3 months. So let me just look into how I show up better in this different time frame. So this is a very mature concept to develop, but the more you develop it, the more connection you can create, because you can create clean connection, because your value isn't tied to your kid's behavior. Your value is tied to how you show up and how you problem solve. And when you put your value on you, you can be confident no matter what happens with your kids. Okay. So the 8-week pivot or connective challenge is a chance to create a ton of value in your relationships. It's a finite period of time. You're going to work so closely with your mind and your body and your emotions. You're going to be able to practice belief and act from a place of having achieved something and then seeing it all the way through to that belief. Okay. So we're going to create a lot of value in the relationship, show up with tons of connection, really clean up our mind. We're going to do it in a very finite period of time so that we can bring our nervous system right to the forefront and let all of our triggers and our traumas and our perspectives and our thought errors to come up so we can clean them up. We're going to be really examining our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our nervous system, our triggers, so that we can be onto ourselves and take full ownership. And we're going to practice being in a belief that we have already achieved this new way of parenting. And then we're going to see it all the way through for 8 weeks and be surprised and amazed at what we can create for ourselves. So the big things you have a chance to walk away with if you come and do the pivot, this last round of 2024, are knowing how to stay connected even when your child's behaving at their worst. 2, knowing what it takes to create a better relationship with your child on demand, not just when they're cooperating, not just when they're validating the effort you're putting into the relationship, but on demand, using your connection to further your mission, your purpose, and your priorities as a parent. And 3, you're going to learn how to live in the land of your child's outcome and your outcome being a reality in order to be highly creative and show up more than ever in the relationship, in the parenting. One of the things I said to one of the most amazing moms I'm working with recently, she was really emotional. She came to our call and she was emotional because she had experienced this huge win with one of her kids. And she was crying because it had happened to her in an out of the blue way. She wasn't even attempting to do it. But I had coached her on something a little while before that was really deep, something that had been creating a lot of pain and suffering for her. And when she moved past that suffering, it opened her up to create something new for herself and her parenting. The ability of high-level thinking and holding lots of compassion and safety for herself allowed her to have a high level of thinking and hold lots of compassion and safety for her kids. It was amazing to witness. And as she was feeling really emotional, I said to her, hey, listen, I love this so much. I love that you're feeling so emotional and so much connection to what you are doing for yourself and your kids and living in the land of outcome, this outcome that you're creating for yourself and your kids and seeing the impact and the importance of what you're creating and it's making you emotional. This is where the magic resides, in our ability to be living with that commitment to feel the emotions and the confidence right on the surface. This 8-week pivot is a time to live in this belief, to foster that emotional drive, that commitment, and that next level of confidence when you are engaged so deeply that you can feel the emotions right on the surface. And you could even cry right in the moment. And it's such a good cry because you are so committed. You're so emotional about what you're creating or the possibility of what you're creating. And it's life-changing. And when you're living like that, you are going to connect like gangbusters to what really matters to you and to your kids. It's going to be crazy the shifts you're going to make in 8 weeks. And you also have the ability to walk away with the belief system of behavior is information. This is something to understand, not fix. All emotions are welcome. This makes sense. What if I'm wrong about this? And you're going to have, and so many other thoughts, by the way, we're going to install so many beautiful thoughts that allow you to stay regulated regardless. And you're going to have the problem solving belief system of I need to create connection, not correction to help my child. That shift is everything. You're also going to understand that there are 3 strategies, I call them the CMP strategies, that are the core at problem solving any tricky behavior. And they are 1, understand your own behavior so you can leave room for theirs. 2, consistently connect. And 3, choose closeness when there's off-track behavior. So, okay, when things aren't going great with your kids or your parenting or your nervous system, you're going to start to walk away from any situation after doing the pivot, thinking, what is my 3-pronged CMP strategy approach that I can create that will lead me to show up the way I respect? Your brain's hardwired response to your child's off-track behavior or just parenting in general is going to immediately go to thinking, okay, I'm going to look at the 3 CMP strategies. I'm going to see where I can invest more, where I can create a better connection plan, where I need to up the relationship, where I need to look more closely at my nervous system and my triggers. I need to see what maybe I'm missing with my response to how my child's showing up. What are my beliefs? What's causing me to get triggered? That is going to be the way your brain's going to begin to think after doing the 8-week pivot. Will it be completely locked in? Possibly. Most of our brains take longer than 8 weeks to completely replace our whole parenting framework, but you're going to have those belief systems beginning to take root, which will change everything. People ask me, what if I feel like nothing's working for my parenting right now? And if this is what you're feeling, you're feeling hopeless, you've tried everything, you're wondering like, would this work for me? Like nothing's working. Everything's really falling apart right now. You could be at a figurative 0 with your parenting. If we were looking at it at a bank account, it could be a 0 or even in the red. And if you have the right mindset, and if you come in committed to do the work, we can help you turn the ship around. Sometimes that mindset is going to be created slowly, and you're going to gradually step into this new way of thinking and feeling and being as a parent. Sometimes you're going to come into the pivot, and we're going to create that new mindset, and it's going to be like a force of nature. It clicks and nothing is going to stop you. I've seen both and everything in between. So for me, when my parenting was so broken and I felt like I was using the bank account analogy, it was in the red, it was in the negatives, hundreds of thousands in the negatives. That's how it felt. I didn't feel like I had other options, and I could wallow and blame my kids. I could be upset that my husband wasn't helping me more, feel a lot of pity for myself, entitled. I could feel sorry for myself that my kids were so high energy or so highly sensitive, so challenging. I could be mad at how much I had tried to be a good parent and it wasn't working out, frustrated, upset, resistant that all this was happening to my life. And I've done all of those things at one time or another. Sometimes I'm still tempted to do them. My brain still likes to offer me terrible thoughts sometimes, but things shift for me really fast now. They don't stay in it. And back in the day, things shifted for me when I realized none of that was going to change anything for me with my parenting. And once I discovered the truth of parenting, which is connection, attachment, togetherness, a regulated nervous system, that is what changes behavior, not correction, not consequences. You know what consequences do? They create structure and order and safety. They're important. They can also relax our child's nervous system if we're creating them or using them rather in a way to create a safe environment for them. But they don't in and of themselves change behavior. A lot of times they do the absolute opposite because we're dishing them out, dishing out the correction, we're dishing out the consequences in a way that is activating. It activates their nervous system in a negative way. We're activated when we give them because we feel frustrated, and it sabotages what we're trying to create. So dropping into the belief that yes, connection, attachment, setting firm limits, but from a very compassionate place, dropping into curiosity, not judgment, understanding what mirror neurons do. Mirror neurons are sending out signals constantly to everyone around us, and our kids are pros at picking up the signals we're sending out about the emotional state we're in. And so I can't pretend to be compassionate. I've really got to figure out how to be compassionate. I can't pretend to not judge them. I've got to really figure out how to not judge them. That is the work that we do with Connect Method Parenting. And you're going to get started in a big way with the pivot. So getting that to your core, you have the possibility of having that new compass, that new North Star by participating in the pivot. And if you worked with me before, if you've done the pivot before, I'd say come in, because that North Star can be stronger. We can magnetize it even more. We can create even more belief so that it just is second nature. Okay, so how do I shift in my parenting through connection? Okay, I got to go deep, create deep connection with myself and my kids, with my priorities, with my nervous system. I've got to connect and be accepting of my children's behavior, especially the stuff that's triggering or we have judgmental thoughts about it. It's not going to help us. You've got to understand your own nervous system, your thoughts. You've got to create relationships of trust with your children. You have to respond with compassion and firmness and choose togetherness and closeness when things go off track versus starting to lean out and judge and correct when there's off track behavior. These are all of the things that start to happen when you shift your parenting into a connection mode instead of a correction mode. There just isn't time or room to focus on anything else. This is the problem to solve. How do I offer more togetherness? How do I show up in a more compassionate way? How do I help their nervous system be safe so that they can receive what I'm offering, so that I can give the feedback, if that needs to happen, in a way that can actually be heard by my child because they're not activated. Once they get activated and triggered, their nervous system goes into fight or flight, prefrontal cortex goes offline, sympathetic nervous system kicks in. They are not going to be able to understand anything you're saying. And if anything, they become more defended and less likely to hear you, not more. So that's why all of the time I'm saying, do you want to get your kids to want to listen to you? Not contrive, force, manipulate, control them to listen to you by giving them an ultimatum, by bribing them with something. Like, genuinely want to listen to you. And we do this through connection. It's the only way. So when I got to this place, when I realized, yes, I have to draw a line in the sand. I cannot sneak my way or pretend I'm doing connection-based parenting and then sneak over and give a little jab or a little consequence that's coming from a punitive place. I can set a limit. I can have boundaries. I can have rules. Absolutely. That moment of clarity where there was this point of no return, where I couldn't tolerate myself to use correction, judgment, or resistance any longer, that changed everything. That's what I want for you. That is what I want for you. That type of mindset, when you can really believe that connection, not correction, is how change happens, acceptance, not resistance, curiosity, not judgment. When you start correlating this, when you start aligning who you are with the kind of parent you want to become and realize this is creating the value, this is the investment I want to make in my parenting, and I'm going to go out and create that kind of connective value. And this is the relationship that I want to create with myself and my children and their behavior. And I'm going to believe that I can create the relationship and connection and compassion because I am so strong in my connection plan, my CMP 3-pronged strategy plan, high value, high connection, high acceptance. When you know that, when you're so committed and you know that what I am creating here, I know the value of it. I know it feels so much better to have someone see me instead of criticize me. So of course that would feel better to my kids. I know that the way to get to their heart so they want to listen to me, so maybe they feel the remorse when they've done something wrong, is for them to have a soft heart. That requires a safe place for them to feel accepted. They want to have, or they need to have, a big invitation to be who they are, especially the messy parts. When you know that you can create that, when you know the value of that, then you also will feel the emotions and the connection and the drive that will follow. If you can develop that, even all those things I just described, even when you feel like your parenting is in the red, you're going to create some really remarkable results in your parenting, but you have to believe it. When I see this click with parents, like in their brain, this light bulb goes off, I know that they are going to go and create something amazing with their kids. Relationships are going to heal. Listening is going to get better. They're going to feel more fulfilled and satisfied. They're going to have more joy in their parenting. They're going to feel more confident and capable. They're going to put their head on the pillow at night and think, you know what? I did a great job. Are there things I can improve? Yes, but I'm on the right track. When these things are working so succinctly, that is what happens. We see an increase in connection, confidence, emotional capacity as a direct result of the 3-pronged connection plan strategy that they're implementing. So when you need to change something with your parenting, and you go through the pivot, you have the possibility of having that be your go-to, where when things go off track, you immediately go to, okay, let me look at the 3 CMP strategies. Let me see where I need to improve. Let me see where I can invest more and create this high value connection plan. And then you need to immediately, or what you will naturally do, is you're going to immediately go serve other people. You're immediately going to start going and connecting more to yourself. And what's going to happen is you're going to go serve. You're going to start saying, what does my child need? How are they struggling? What's going on? You're going to go to deeper understanding, more compassion. You're going to immediately start connecting to your children more. You're going to start connecting to yourself more. You're going to have less judgment for everyone. When you start doing this, you immediately see that inherently giving, meaning you give connection without anything tied to it, it's not transactional, is what creates you getting. It's ironic Like the less I want, the less I need, the more I get. And you're going to see that it's not, I've got to go get. So I give connection with my kids to create better behavior, which is what your brain thinks. I got to go fix them. I've got to go, and this is where we get this is the dark side of connection. I got to go connect with them so they behave better. No, you just go connect and it's clean connection. And you're okay if their timeline to change things around, to want to connect more with you, to want to have better behavior is delayed or takes longer. You don't care because you're showing up the way you want to show up in a way you respect. So this is the beautiful opportunity. This is the chance with the 8-week parenting pivot is to really see that that's true. There's such a beautiful container, this 8-week container that we've created for you to work specifically on this. You learn the lessons to help you get the information to create a new framework of parenting based on attachment theory. And we also use other modalities to help install new belief systems. Because what the attachment theory, specifically Dr. Neufeld's attachment theory, is my favorite. It corrects a lot of the misnomers we have around behavior, around emotions, around parenting. And so we have these beautiful thoughts and this framework that's so powerful and so true, so aligned. And then we have to get our brain to think those thoughts, to have that framework, to function from that place. So we use other modalities to help create new neural pathways in our brain so we can actually function that way. You get so much support as you implement these new strategies in real life. Your brain's going to want to show up this way. It's going to show up in a way where your kids are going to want to listen to you. And within the 8 weeks, you're going to notice too that there's going to be moments where your brain wants to revert to old patterns, where it wants to go resort to consequences. It wants to go try to be pushy and urgency and needy and get some validation from your kids to prove that this whole new way of parenting is working. And we're going to constantly bring yourself back to a high value connective strategy based in the 3 CMP strategies. And by giving that one-way connection, which never comes from forced urgency or neediness or graspiness. And there are going to be times in the program where you are going to want to resort to the fast fixes you've used in the past, correction-based fixes, when your child's behavior is off track, and you're going to want to hustle, and you're going to want to push, and you're going to want to get your kids to listen to you and fix the behavior in the moment. And you're constantly, with our help, going to need to bring yourself back. This is the beauty of being in a container like the 8-week parenting pivot. Bring yourself back to say, no, I got to create a high value connective strategy based on the 3 CMP strategies. I got to look at my own mind so I can leave room for theirs. I got to calm my nervous system down so I can show up in a way that hopefully my child's nervous system can calm down. I've got to consistently be investing in the relationship. That's strategy 2, consistently connect. And then the third one is I got to respond with connection or choose closeness when we want to pull back, when we want to judge. And so we're going to be coming back to that, and we're going to be helping you do that, which is fantastic because change doesn't happen from forced urgency or neediness or graspiness. Now, one of the things you're going to learn as you go through the 8-week parenting pivot is what to do when your brain wants to give up. You see, what our brains do is if it starts to detect failure, it'll start to just disengage and create failure before it actually happens. So for example, let's say you decided your big mama goal for the 8-week parenting pivot was to work on bedtime. And so you have this super connective bedtime that you've planned out, you know how you're going to show up, and you're doing a really good job. But things haven't shifted much. Say after a week, after 2 weeks, you're still feeling frustrated. Or maybe they've shifted a little bit, but not enough to satisfy your brain. And your brain wants fast results, which, side note, nothing in nature happens fast. So if we're working with the laws of nature, I want you to think of anything that happens overnight. Basically nothing. The seasons take time. The days take time. Things in nature take time. And the fast fixes are man-made. They're artificial. So it makes sense that this is going to take time, but your brain has been using correction-based techniques, which sometimes give really fast results. And so you're used to, maybe even slightly addicted to the fast results that you've been getting. And so your brain is like, nope, not fast enough. We've been doing this for 3 weeks and I thought we'd have a complete turnaround. So obviously connection doesn't work. Nope, it just takes time. We have a complicated set of issues. We have you're human and your nervous system and your triggers, and you're trying to clean yourself up and create better connection. You're also needing to invest in the relationship. You're also needing to clean up the judgments you're having. And then you're needing to practice responding when the kids still act immature in a way that's connective, not corrective, that creates more relationship, not less relationship. So there's all these factors going into play, not to mention all the experiences that the kids have with the habits that they've developed, the way they feel around bedtime, which is a really big point of separation for a lot of children. There's all their stuff too. So yeah, it's going to take time to actually get to the root and heal it. But your brain is going to say, red alert, this should have been fixed 2 weeks ago. Instant result is what we want, instant gratification. So your brain sees this, interprets it that way, or it may. We're doing hypothetical here, and we're going to talk about like why it does it, and then how doing the pivot is going to help you learn a new skill or get better at a skill of understanding the flow of how change actually happens. So the shifts haven't happened fast enough to satisfy your brain. So your brain wants to label it as a fail. This happens to all people who are trying to achieve big things with their parenting and big things with life. And believe me, going from a corrective to a connective parenting framework is a big deal. It's a big up level. It's like becoming a multi-millionaire as far as what is required of your brain to handle that kind of energy and success and all the things that are going on emotionally. It's a big upgrade. It's a big emotional nervous system upgrade. Your brain, though, if it has interpreted that bedtime routine, we've tried it for 3 weeks, it hasn't worked, it's going to try to give up and conserve energy. It's going to pull back when it thinks there's a chance that you won't make it and that you aren't going to create what you want with your kids. So I want you to consider that most parents fail to transition from corrective to connective parenting because they don't produce enough effort, enough sustained effort to get them all the way through to the finish line. It's not because they're not good enough. It's not because it doesn't work. There's something that happens when your brain just decides it's going to be a fail ahead of time and starts pulling back. This is what happens a lot when you set a big parenting goal for yourself. So when you come into the 8-week parenting pivot, we're talking about a 60-day timeline, and you get 60 days to work on this. But let's say you get 30 days in and your brain starts to freak out because it hasn't seen the changes that you want yet. It decides, hey, it's a waste of energy to keep doing this. Let's not do this anymore. Don't put any more energy into this. And so you want to start to quit. You disappear. You stop iterating on your bedtime routine that you came up with. You stop coming to office hours. You stop engaging. You stop listening to lessons. You stop serving your children. You stop leaning into more understanding. You stop doing your daily piece. All the things versus going all the way through to the finish line. This is what happens so many times to parents who don't understand that this is going to happen. So they get fooled. They get fooled into thinking there's validity to this. And this is what happened so many times when I first started really getting and really doing this work myself. I'd come up with a plan. Things wouldn't work out. My brain would say, well, it's not going to work out. Just something's wrong with you. Don't work on this anymore. And what was really happening is I wasn't fully executing. I wasn't leaning into the 3 strategies, or I realized my plan or my theory of what I thought it was going to take to turn bedtime around wasn't enough. It was off. It was just a theory. I needed to revise my plan, but nothing had gone wrong. So that was the issue. Either I wasn't really fully executing the plan I'd come up with, was second guessing myself, or my plan wasn't the right plan. I needed to fix it. Happens all the time in business, but in parenting, we want to get it right the first time, which is probably not going to happen when you've never done this work before. So I have watched my brain want to pull back and give up and think better luck next time, freak out, be super disappointed. And the act of getting your brain to re-engage, to think about the plan, in this example, the bedtime plan, and thinking that was just a theory, but it wasn't dialed in perfectly yet, which makes sense. This is my first go at it, or my second go at it, or even my 10th go at it. Now is the time to iterate and do it again. To get your brain to engage with that, go all the way to the finish line, literally thinking of things up until the very last minute. What's the next thing I could do? What do my kids need to hear? What am I missing? Where am I judging? Where am I resisting? What do my children need to feel to be moved to have different behavior at bedtime? Now, your brain doesn't want to do that work. It's uncomfortable to iterate and question and self-confront and take 100% ownership. It wants to conserve energy. That's its main job. It's what it's been programmed to do for generations. So the entire time you're trying to achieve something big with your parenting, your brain is trying to conserve energy. So do the opposite. You're saying, no, let's put a lot of energy into this big parenting goal. And your brain's like, oh, let's conserve energy. This is one of the most important things to start catching so that you can get control over it. You will also have the opportunity to overcome so many challenges and obstacles and limiting beliefs as you do the pivot. They're really all the same things, but challenges, obstacles, limitations, solving all the problems that are keeping you from being the parent that you want to be. We're going to work on all of that. Having this big mama goal that you're working towards, a very specific thing, is going to give you the opportunity to learn your reaction sequence, which is the sequence of events, the thoughts you take, the actions you take, the beliefs that start cycling through your brain, the way you react to obstacles, challenges, limitations, hardships, things that aren't working the way you want them to work, problems. Then there's who you want to be. One of the things I want to tell you is there's the way you've reacted in the past when something happens. And then there's the way you're going to learn to react moving forward. And we're going to talk about it in the pivot. Let's say you decided to go big and you're going to drop all the judgment around your teenager's attitude. But then one of your kids gets sick and your brain instantly offers up the thought, I can't finish this pivot. I have other kids that are sick. I'm tied up with all these things. And you could have this freak out and decide it's not for you. You're not in. You're just going to not be able to do it because you're not going to get the sleep you need. And there's this distraction. Once again, you're going to have to give up your dreams. Or that's the previous reaction cycle, right? The reaction sequence. Or you can have a different reaction and be the person who achieves the thing. In this case, dropping all judgment with your teenager, even when there's other obstacles or challenges or limitations. So you have another child that's sick. You're not going to let that stop you anymore. Not because it wasn't there. That's what keeps us not being able to depend on ourselves and be able to create the life we want with our kids, because we think we can only show up the way we want to with our kids when everything's going smoothly and there's no friction and they're listening to us and our plans are working perfectly and our kids are in a good mood and I'm feeling great. No, you're going to learn to become the parent who can trust yourself and know that you can show up as the parent regardless of how many sick kids you have, how you're feeling, all the friction, all the unexpected things that come up. What I am talking about is knowing how to show up as the parent you want to be despite the challenges, obstacles, limitations, frictions, problems that arise, being the person who can do it now. That is the best thing. It's literally the feeling of control over being the parent you want to be, regardless of how many children you have, how the children are behaving, how life is going. And really what I call this is the ability to forecast your parenting. It's kind of like revenue forecasting, but parenting forecasting. When you can show up as the parent you want to be outside of the ideal situations, and you can bank on yourself, you can trust yourself, you have the confidence in yourself that you can be the parent that you want to be. And you can be very certain that you are going to show up as the parent you want to respect, that you are going to show up as the kind of parent you respect regardless. And there are tiers to this. You're like, I feel really confident I can show up this way with my kids at bedtime. Not because I'm forecasting or living in the ideal conditions, but because I'm forecasting who I'm going to be in the non-ideal conditions. This is life-changing. It's so much bigger than the pivot. It's so much bigger than an 8-week time period or a 60-day time period. It's the infinite game. It really is. That's what you have the possibility of creating in the pivot. And truly, I want to offer that this pivot and the things that we've discussed already, this mindset, the emotional regulation, that is what is available to you. In League, I teach different levels of Connect Method parenting, but underneath the current of all of it, this ability to continue to up-level your mindset, to be emotionally regulated no matter what's going on with the kids. That's what we're consistently working on. Because when we get that right, you'll know what to say. You'll be able to handle tricky situations so much better. You won't need to remember the right script or the right thing. You'll feel it inside of you. Now, here's the reason that you might not be up for the 8-week parenting pivot and might not be ready to do it with me. This is the reason you might say it isn't for you. And the first reason, I have a couple. The first reason is you have goal aversion. You think the act of having a goal creates hustle and pressure. So you think you should never have a goal versus what I'm going to offer to you is that you just haven't learned yet how to have so much fun and feel excited and compelled and feel the transformational healing that can come when you have an amazing parenting goal. There's a big difference. I want you to consider this. Your goal that you're going to set for yourself in the 8-week parenting pivot, we call it the big mama goal, has the ability to change you as a person. Every time you decide to set a goal for yourself, it has the ability to take you from a person with limited capacity, capability, who doesn't work well under pressure, who can't guarantee that they'll show up in a calm, connected way when behavior goes off track. Doing the pivot has the ability to take you from that person to becoming the person who uses a goal to become the next version of themselves, who is free from the shackles of limitations and excuses of being the parent that they don't want to be. Someone who's empowered with their parenting, not disempowered by their parenting, and empowered by their kids' off-track behavior, not disempowered by their off-track behavior. Someone who knows their limitations, who gets excited about a challenge and figures out how to overcome it. So who knows when they go big and they go all in on their goal, their kids get big value, big connection from them. So they know every time they show up to hit a goal, it's a win-win. Their kids receive more than ever. They don't think it means something terrible about them when they don't hit their goal. They just see it as another opportunity to learn and to up-level themselves. Someone who knows how to step up for a challenge and create space for themselves to be inspired. And when you feel inspired, you're going to inspire other people. Your kids are going to feel your energy, and you're going to be able to learn how to create higher levels of unconditional love, more capacity for compassion and emotional regulation. You're going to become someone who goes and turns off-track behavior situations into deeply connecting situations, not a disconnecting situation, period. It's always a win-win when we have a big goal that leads us to more connection, not less. So do you want to become the version of yourself who says, bring it on? This parenting goal that I've set for myself, I already see how it will make me into the next version of who I want to be as a parent. It's going to require so much of me. I can't wait to become that version of myself. It's going to require me not to procrastinate anymore. It's going to require me to believe in connection so much more than I ever have, so that I motivate myself to take consistent, powerful, connective action every single day, not just because there's a deadline or because there's off-track behavior, but because that's what I want to create for myself. And doing it every single day for these 8 weeks, not just the last week because the parenting pivot is almost over, that will change you. It has the power for you to think, I can't wait to be more resourceful, to have more capacity at the end of this 8-week parenting pivot, to be more capable, to be able to solve problems at a higher level than I've ever done before. I can't wait to become the person who has blown my own mind. It has that possibility for you. Your relationship with your goal could feel like that. It could be the most nurturing, transformational experience that you will have ever put yourself in. Creating a big mama goal has the ability to be incredibly valuable for you as a human, and it can be so much fun. It can be a good time. It can make you feel more alive than you've ever felt before. Not less valuable, not less worthy, not less as a human, but more valuable, more worthy, and more human than ever before. Now, the second reason that you might not want to do this challenge with me, the first one is goal aversion. If you don't want to set a goal, probably not a good fit. The second reason you might not want to do the 8-week parenting pivot is because you aren't kind to yourself when you don't succeed, and you kind of like beating yourself up. But what I want to offer to you is, what if learning how to be kind to yourself is the next version of you? Do you want to become someone who can be kind to yourself through the losses and the failures and the hard stuff, the missed expectations, through realizing you misunderstood what was going to be required? What do they say now on TikTok? You didn't understand the assignment. It's kind of a funny way to say it, but it's kind of true. Can I misunderstand the assignment and not beat myself up when I don't get it right the first time? Can you put your hand on your heart and love and appreciate and feel proud of your effort, your belief, and all of the work that you did to become even this next version of yourself, even though you didn't accomplish your goal? The strategic byproducts that come out of us attempting a goal, doing something hard like the 8-week parenting pivot, saying, you know what, I am going to try this new thing. It feels scary. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I'm not sure exactly what I'm even signing up for, but I want to do it because I want the end result, more compassion, more kindness, more grace for my child, more listening, better relationships. That's what I want. So I'm going to give it a go. And it feels better to me when people treat me that way. So it probably feels better to my kids when they don't have somebody giving them correction and consequences when they're a human and they mess up. So this willingness to go all in on a goal, to do something hard like the 8-week parenting pivot, and to be okay if things don't turn out the way you were hoping they would, to be able to have compassion for yourself. This is available when you have a good relationship with yourself as you are working to achieve big goals with your parenting. So do you want to be the person who the way they react to losing and not getting what they want and failing is not beating the crap out of themselves, but instead modeling what you want for your child to have for themselves, right? Showing up for yourself in a compassionate way. When you do that for yourself, you're teaching your children what to do for them, like what they want to do for themselves as well. They're getting to watch you fail, get back up, keep going, and be kind to yourself the whole time. They're getting to watch you learn and evaluate. They're getting to watch you develop the skill that no one teaches you in school, to be kind and to iterate and to keep going, that will later become the things we teach them that will be more powerful than any money we could spend on anything else we put them into. So do you want to become someone who can teach your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews about failure? I promise you, if you learn to become someone who can be kind to yourself when you lose, your whole world will open up. The self-compassion I've developed for following my biggest losses, my biggest mistakes, is why I'm able to sit with so much self-compassion for myself and for my parents that I work with. Now, I have developed this myself, and it has been very challenging, really hard for me to develop. Probably one of the most challenging things for me to do for myself was to be kind to myself. You may have heard me tell this story, but I remember back in the days, I was struggling being kind to myself. I'd really believed this idea that being unkind, being hard, being really critical to myself was how I was going to grow. And it wasn't working. And it was just making me more miserable and not showing up as the person I wanted to be. But it was really hard to disentangle myself from it. And I remember asking someone I felt was very wise about this concept. And she said, yeah, I was talking about something I was struggling, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time. And I was telling her what I was doing to fix it. And she said to me, she just stopped me in my tracks. And she said, well, what if you just tried to be kind to yourself? And I remember thinking, is that allowed? That sounds really dangerous. I don't know if I can do that. How is that ever going to motivate me to be better? I had been so inundated with this idea, and I had believed it hook, line, and sinker that the way I moved forward was to be critical and to be hard on myself, that it was mind-blowing that more growth could happen from acceptance and compassion. But that is exactly where it comes from. When we have acceptance and compassion for ourselves, our nervous system can stay in a parasympathetic state. Our prefrontal cortex can stay online. We can problem solve at a much higher level. So, yeah, it makes complete sense that having compassion for ourselves and loving ourselves through our mistakes is what creates more growth than anything else. And same with our kids. That's why corrective parenting is so problematic, because it activates their nervous system, which is counterproductive to growth. But when we accept and we have compassion and we're not judging and we're not coming from fear or neediness or graspiness, we're not trying to control, we have more impact and influence, and they're able to receive that as well. So treating yourself this way with compassion, when you go all in, and because if you come into the pivot, I want you to go all in. I want you to dive into the water, and I want you to swim in the water of connective parenting, because that is how your life will change massively. If you just dip your toe in, it's not going to change. And I want you to be okay that, like, at first, I'm not going to know how to swim the strokes. We got a gym membership where we're staying in Barcelona for a month, and we got a gym membership, and it has a pool. And one of my daughters has decided to swim as her exercise. But even though we grew up in Arizona and she's a great swimmer, she never really did the strokes and studied the strokes. She wasn't on a swim team of any kind. And so she feels a little insecure about her strokes. And what I am so proud of her for is she's just going in and she's just decided she's going to teach herself how to, she knows basically all the strokes, but she wants to do them properly. And so she's studying, she's looking at YouTube videos, she's going and practicing, and she's doing it in public where people can look at her and we don't speak the language, so they could even be talking about her and she wouldn't know. And it's been a really beautiful process to witness her deciding to go all in and not be worried about failing, to realize that it's the failure, it's the getting in the water and trying to do the strokes and doing them wrong, which leads to better strokes. And it's the same thing with this. Yes, it's a finite time period I'm asking you to do this in, 8 weeks. But what we're doing inside the 8-week parenting pivot comes with infinite outcomes. And we're talking about an infinite change in the way you see the world. It will change everything for you. And the third reason you might not want to do it is because it's not convenient or planned. I get it. But when was parenting ever convenient or planned? So why not practice being a better parent in a time where it's not convenient or planned? It's going to prepare you for all those off-track behavior moments, the attitudes, the bedtime that doesn't go as planned, the chores that the kids are just refusing to do that are not convenient or planned, but you got to show up the way you want to show up. Compassionate, firm, patient, understanding, regulated nervous system, set that firm, compassionate boundary. So it's a perfect scenario to help you practice how to get yourself in the most equipped, regulated way for you to parent the way you want to. So come join us in the least convenient, and maybe you haven't been planning for it, pivot of the year. And yes, you do get 2 weeks off for Christmas and for Thanksgiving, which I think is a big reason to do it this round, because you get 2 extra weeks to go through the content, absorb, practice, iterate. But your brain might feel like it's too challenging for where you're at or too much going on. But that is the perfect scenario to practice parenting, because it's always challenging. There's always something else going on. It's never convenient or planned. And here's the thing. Who you are now and what you have is a result of the limits you currently have. And I want to bust through those limits so you can become someone new. So the way you are showing up with your kids, the amount of patience you have, is literally the cap of your ability to problem solve, your ability to hold the emotions that are coming up, your nervous system regulation, which is totally fine. Your ability to overcome obstacles and to be inconvenienced and to do it anyway is going to change your life. So the 8-week parenting pivot is a challenge. It's meant to be. It's hard. It requires overcoming lots of things. But once you do, you get to be that person forever. You own that inside of you. And that no one can ever take away from you. It's one of the most important things you could own. I remember there was a time years ago when I was on a walk, which is where some of my best thoughts come to me, that and in the shower. And I remember thinking about parenting and who I was and how I was being and who I wanted to be for my kids. And it felt impossible. And then I remember how different I was as a parent from the previous year and how there were areas where now I was able to stay regulated that used to really trigger me. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I think I could be more patient in how I interact with my child who's really struggling in this new area, because I was able to up-level how I showed up at bedtime. A year ago, bedtime was so challenging and hard and triggering for me, and it took me a while to figure it out. But who I am now, because of what I learned by handling myself better at bedtime, is going to help me become the person who solves this new problem. I'm more skilled. I know more. I have greater emotional capacity. I think faster. I have better relationships with my kids and with myself. I had so many reasons that I could prove to myself that I wasn't the same person who it took 8 months or however long to figure out bedtime. I was a completely different version because of the time I spent to dial in bedtime. Every day I'm like, okay, so yes, it was really hard. It took a long time to dial in this example, bedtime or whatever it is, this new challenge I have with this child. But every time I dial it in, I become more emotionally capable. I change my thoughts. I stop judging. I'm navigating it in a way that's working. The relationship's better, even though things are rocky. I am a new version of myself. And that new version of myself has different skill sets available to me. It's different. But this requires going to the finish line and looking at your brain and picking yourself up intentionally and learning how to create the path over and over again, create more and more connective theories until you find the one that works. You're going to learn how to do this and study yourself through the entire 8-week parenting pivot. We also look at your unique experience. And I've been thinking about this pattern that we have. We all have our unique, responses that we go to when things are challenging. One of the moms I've worked with, when she's come up with a goal, parenting goal, and she's going for it, she gets into this I need to work energy. Like she is go, 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 go. And it really is hard for her to accomplish the goal because she's so needy. And so we constantly have to guide her back to calm and grounded and connection without any result attached to it. Another mom that I've worked with when she has a goal and she's not achieving it, she starts beating herself up, failing ahead of time. This was the way I went. This was my little track that my brain liked to go down. And so the solution for her is to lean into more compassion and kindness. The reason the 8-week parenting pivot is there is because it does take a lot of energy to mentally rewire your brain. Your brain wants to take the path of least resistance and go into these habitual patterns, like I was just talking about, those two moms. And you've got to painstakingly do the tedious work to get it to do something different, to take another path, to accomplish your goal in the exact time frame you want to accomplish it. And it's okay if you don't get it in the time frame at first. You create the goal to get your brain to try to accomplish it in the time frame. You've got to do that over and over and over and over again. I remember when we got a little puppy. It was a long time ago. Now we have a big puppy, big sheepadoodle, but this was years and years ago, and 2013. And my youngest was 5, and she loved that puppy. And this was like a little tiny dog. So the dog was not going to be more than like 5 pounds. So when it was a puppy, it was so tiny. She was squeezing him too tight and not understanding how to be kind and respectful of the dog's little puppy space. And we often would say to her, gentle, 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 to try to help her brain understand how to interact with the dog in a way that wouldn't hurt the puppy. And that's what we're doing to our brains in the pivot. We're saying gentle, gentle. We're trying to remember our brains to be gentle, to keep going, to learn new ways of interacting with situations that we have interacted with in the past that haven't been helpful, or that are just new. Like the puppy was new. My daughter didn't know how to interact with the puppy. So learning how to interact with these new ways of being and seeing things differently. Okay, so this is the pivot as I can explain it in one podcast episode. Everything, though, that you want to know about this very experiential, hands-on 8-week parenting pivot can be found at cmp.works/pivot, or you can just go to connectmethodparenting.com and check out the details there. There should be information all over the page. If you're not listening to this live and you're trying to figure out what we're doing next, go to connectmethodparenting.com. You'll figure out what we're offering and when it's happening on the main website. Now, this is not for the faint of heart. So you have to know whether you are capable of participating at this level, really focusing on making huge shifts with your parenting in an 8-week time period. If you are, this has the power to change you as a parent, to change you as a person, to marry connection, compassion, and firmness, to better listening, relationships, and a lot more fun. And again, no matter where you are with your parenting or how long you've been studying Connect Method Parenting, there is something for you to learn inside of the pivot. It's going to feel challenging and hard. And depending on how much knowledge and experience of Connect Method Parenting you have coming in will dictate how much you're going to be able to glean and get out of it. We can only, I think, assimilate or learn, retain about 10% of information when it's our first go through. That's why I love to read books over and over and over again, because I get something new out of the book. And so, come in and learn the next level or get the first pass at it. It's going to feel challenging and hard, but like the best workout of your life, where you leave the gym feeling so proud that you showed up for yourself that day. Even though it was hard, it was worth it. If you're feeling excited, if you're feeling stirred, that's a good way to know if this is right for you. So here are the details. And these are also available if you go to cmp.works/pivot. You'll see all of the details there. The pivot starts on Monday, October 28th. So this next Monday, after this air date for this podcast goes live, it's going to be 1 week from today, and it's going to go until January 11th. So it's 10 weeks because we're taking those 2 weeks off for the holidays. And here's what you get. You'll get access to weekly lessons that are between 60 and 90 minutes long. You can watch the lessons inside of the portal or listen to them on a private podcast feed. And these lessons will teach you step by step the CMP framework, taking the guesswork out of how you drop correction-based consequence-based parenting and replace it with connection-based parenting. No threats, lectures, ultimatums, bribes, timeouts required or recommended. We are going to drop all of them. It's going to be gone. We're going to set up a whole new framework. You're going to understand how it works so much better. A big part of this challenge is belief. So every lesson is going to help you create the right set of beliefs for you to be successful. You also get access to the Companion Pivot Playbook. You get the digital copy. We're also making available for you to be able to buy just at cost the hard copy if you want, because I've had so many requests for that. This playbook has all the supportive materials you need and complementary materials to everything you're learning in the lessons to help you take the information you learn in the lessons and apply it to real life. You'll also have access to office hours. That's where I'm going to be coaching the group live throughout the 8-week parenting pivot. Everyone in the pivot can come to these calls. We'll be coaching like crazy, getting out all of the examples, all of the scenarios, creating solutions, blasting past limitations and obstacles, managing friction, all of the things. Anything that pops up along the way that feels like this is getting in the way of you being successful, we're going to talk about it on these calls. We're actually going to create a solution and move past it, helping you, know how to do the next steps, creating thinking that allows you to be bigger than the obstacle. So those calls happen multiple times every week. They are optional. You don't have to come to all of them. They are just there to serve you and help you implement this. So at a minimum, you'll have around 24 live calls that you can come to. And the time for those calls are going to vary depending on what works for everyone. And like I said, these are the calls that you're going to get your questions answered, workshop all of the things, role play, making sure that what you're learning is getting implemented into your parenting. If you're nervous to ask questions, don't worry about that at all. You can learn so much by hearing other people work through their issues. And if you can't come live to office hours, you're going to get access to all of the replays on the private podcast feed. There's a specific private podcast feed for office hours, so you can just listen to those while you're doing dishes, running errands, whatever. I had one mom pop into office hours recently and share a huge win. And she attributed her ability to create that win and have the capacity to show up that way by binging old office hour calls. She said it retrained her brain, just listening over and over to real life scenarios and seeing how Connect Method Parenting applied and shifted things. So my goal with this is that whether you're coming live or you're listening to the replays, that you are able to tap into the emotional energy and the framework of Connect Method Parenting whenever you need it. So if you feel like giving up, or you're not getting what you want, or you feel like you're in the wrong energy, wrong emotional place, kind of frustrated, anytime you're not feeling like you're in the zone, you can tap into it. Whether you just listen to 10 minutes of a call or an hour of a call, whenever you need it. I do this often. I pull it past coaching calls and I tap in for 10 minutes, 60 minutes just to get me recalibrated. The office hours are a combination of me coaching and teaching, but I'm not showing up with a lesson, so to speak. I'm teaching through the coaching. And you're going to find them very, very valuable because your brain is going to take concepts that you've learned in the lessons and be able to apply them to specifics, which bridges the gap from knowing to doing faster than almost anything else. You'll also have access to the CMP Power Tools. Inside the CMP portal, it doesn't just host the video lessons, but it also has the tools I teach you. And I have had the app built so that it walks you through the major tools I teach you, which is Daily Peace, creating your connection plan, and what I call the Response Plan Assistant, which is a choose your own adventure way of understanding how to respond in a connective way when there's off-track behavior. It's fantastic. You can use it to prepare for off-track behavior situations in the middle. In real time, I've had mom use it in real time. It was so fun to hear different moms share how they were just literally clicking what was happening and it was guiding them through, or to review off-track situations and see how you could have reacted better in a more connective way. You'll also get the CMP discussion boards. These are new this round. I love community. So we're going to be having a community where we can all support each other and have discussions, and we can evaluate the work we're doing and really encourage each other throughout the entire 8 weeks. So the first lesson is going to go live October 28th. Now, that first week of October 28th is actually orientation week / tech week. We want everybody to have access to the portal. We have some onboarding videos for you all that aren't just technical videos. We do have technical videos too, but more just getting you prepared emotionally for what you are about to undertake. So that's kickoff week. And then week 1 officially starts with the first lesson in the pivot, starts November 3rd, the week of November 3rd. And we're going to have the replays of office hours and the lessons that you have in the pivot in private podcast feed. There's 2 different private podcast feeds you'll subscribe to. You'll have the office hours private podcast feed, which will just have office hour replays, and then the lessons from the pivot. And when I say private podcast feed, if you're not familiar with what that means, it means there's a podcast feed that you get to subscribe to that will show up in whatever podcast player you want. It will look just like a normal public podcast, but for you, but it will only show up for you. And it makes it so easy to listen. You can also watch the replays in the portal. Now, this pivot, because it is part of the CMP study, and it's the last pivot that will be part of the CMP study that we've been running the entire year of 2024, you can basically get it for free. So let me explain. You pay a $200 refundable deposit to show me that you're all in and you're ready to do the work inside the pivot. And at the end of the pivot, if you do all of the work, you get your money back. And all of the details of what that looks like to do all of the work is on the page where you pay the pivot. Next year, the pivot's going to be priced differently. But if you're listening to this right now when this releases before October 26th, or even on October 26th, you can get in on this super sweet deal. Moms who have done the pivot this year have on average seen a 251% improvement in their kids wanting to listen. What? So good. Without threats, ultimatums, no consequences used to get those results. And a 246 increase in their ability to handle challenging situations in a calm, connected way. This works, you all. This works. The parenting pivot is implementation centered, not for the faint of heart, but for those ready for a change. So you do have to apply to get accepted into the pivot and the study. So you'll fill out the application. You will get an email from us letting us know if you've been approved or not. And if you are ready to get started on October 28th. I'm so excited. Now, why am I doing it for a $200 refundable deposit? Because we're conducting the study, like I said, and I want more data to back up what I know to be true, which is Connect Method Parenting works. I'm willing to put myself on the line to gather that. So there's a 100% refundable deposit of $200 required to participate. Again, you get it back after completing the pivot, because I can't conduct a study of the impact of an 8-week parenting program if you don't complete it. And I want to make sure I can allocate the resources in a way that supports the parents that are really committed to doing this work. So check in with yourself and ask, do I believe that I can create incredible results by having access to the 8-week parenting pivot, which means access to the pivot lessons, the office hours multiple times a week, the CMP portal, the private podcast feeds that have replays of the lessons and the office hour calls, a community of people going through this together, the CMP power tools that help you make your big goals, your juicy connection plan, access to the response plan assistant to guide you through any off-track behavior. Do I believe that spending the next 8 weeks immersing myself in creating a new way of parenting from connection to correction, do I believe that in those 8 weeks I can create shifts that are life-changing? And if the answer is yes, I want you to join. This is the perfect container to see what's possible for you in your parenting. I can't wait to do the pivot with you. I know that it will change your life if you show up ready to extract every ounce of value and to create the relationships you want with your kids and to put in the effort of going through what we have created for you and curated for you in the 8-week parenting pivot. It's going to change your life. This is the last pivot of the year. It's going to be the best one ever. And there's going to be so many new things that are happening as we go through this pivot. So if you've done it before, this pivot's going to be different than the others. So get ready. And I'll be coming live to you all with office hours from Rome. We're going to be in Rome by that time. So I'm going to sign off with a little Italian, probably the only Italian I really know. Ciao. So we'll see you all later, guys. Bye. Ciao. If you enjoyed this episode, check out the last 8-week parenting pivot that we're doing this year. It's starting October 28th. It was going to start sooner, but I'm currently traveling internationally with my family and I overestimated how productive I'd be, so we pushed it back a couple of weeks. The pivot is where you're going to learn the entire Connect Method parenting framework in just 8 weeks, helping you have more cooperation, better listening, transitioning from corrective to connective parenting so that your kids actually want to listen to you. If you've been listening to the podcast and you love what we talk about here, but you're having trouble making that transition in your home, this is the ticket for you. It's the last pivot of the study also, which means that you can participate basically for free. In 8 weeks, you put a $200 deposit down. If you go through the entire pivot and do all of the things I ask so that we can track the progress and the results that Connect Method Parenting has in your home, then you get the deposit back at the end, which is so fantastic. Go to cmp.works/pivot. You're going to get all the details there. This is an 8-week parenting boot camp. It is not for the faint of heart, but it's for those who are really ready for a change. If you want to figure out how to get your kids to want to listen to you, if you want to feel more confident in your parenting, you're going to want to come jump in the pivot. I'm going to show you step by step how you go from correction-based techniques to connection-based techniques. We're not going to use consequences, threats, timeouts, any of that anymore. We're going to replace it with a connection-based framework. You're going to get better results and feel so much better. And let's have a little bit of fun. So if you're ready, jump over to cmp.works/pivot. You can get all of the info there. We're starting October 28th. I'm going to finish this with some comments from other parents who have gone through previous pivots, which, by the way, the average is 200% plus increase in listening, confidence, feeling more capable of showing up in a connective, not corrective way. So I'll drop their comments here, take a listen. And if you're interested, go over to cmp.works/pivot. I'll put it in the show notes too. Hope to see you there. We'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.
Like, are we only 2 weeks in? It's like night and day already. There's just been this total shift.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like I've packed in 20 years of counseling or something. Just seeing so much gold coming out of him as I've changed my belief about him in that situation and erased the 20-year-long narrative attached.
Hearts are so connected. So yeah, that has been really good. Thank you. I'm so grateful. And this really has been huge, such an answer to prayer for us.
I just can never express how great this has been and how thankful I am. It's been everything. It's been so good.
I really, really see the change.